You're listening to What's in Store, the official Hardlines podcast series, bringing you the hottest conversations with players in the home improvement retail industry, and brought to you by Geldwen.
Welcome to our latest podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Gallucci, who's a brand strategist and a leadership coach and a creator of the Life Blueprint framework. And you're also speaking at our conference, which is going to be wonderful. Yes, so Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. And so in terms of retailers that may have limited budgets and staff, are there any low-cost strategies that they can use quickly to improve maybe culture and retention?
I think a cup of coffee and a conversation and a walk around the block goes a long way. I said to you a couple of minutes ago, me saying, "Hey, you look great today, Rebecca." It's amazing how kind words, care, how are you doing today? How's your family? You were mentioning this about your brother, your sister, your dog, your child, how's everything going today? And I think when we become human, being human costs us nothing. It costs us nothing to be nice. How much is a cup of coffee or a bottle of water or, a walk around the block? We all need to walk around the block. We all need to go outside and hug a tree. And I'm going to make everybody laugh as I say that, but we need to take that pause. And so imagine if you invested in your employees, 5 minutes, but you're present. You're actually looking at them. You're not talking to them about you. You're talking to them about them. It will help you better understand them, better motivate them. And they're going to be like, oh my God, they really cared about me.
Mm-hmm.
They really cared about me. My daughter is working insane hours right now on a project. And one of her leadership team came up and gave her an amulet that has significant spiritual meaning. And she was so touched and overwhelmed because of the thoughtfulness of it. They'd had a conversation about something. And so he actually went out of his way. This is a very senior VP who knows she's working really hard. He and his wife were out touring, saw this, and he thought of her and brought it back for her specifically. And so, you think of as an employee, kind of go, oh my God, like they actually see that side of me, they care. And so it helps you when you're on hour 19 in a day to think I'm okay. Like I'm okay. Somebody has my back and they actually do, wrong words, but give a shit, like they do. And I think that doesn't cost you anything to care.
Right.
Just costs you time and energy and just a little bit of yourself, and you'll get it back. Like this is the thing, you get it back. So I think sometimes leaders are like, oh my God, where am I going to find that time? But the truth is, you are going to get it back in spades, assuming it's genuine. You have to be genuine and get it back in spades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more open you are, there's more release.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. And then now in terms of with Gen Z entering the workforce, they're working alongside a lot of seasoned employees. What could you say that leaders could do to bridge the maybe generational expectations without losing focus in any way?
I think that's a great question. And I think that's a question we're facing really dramatically right now as there is a shift in how we work and where we work. And I think, there's safety in the bubble of being in our home offices and being online. There's safety here. We've got a screen between us. And I think that Gen Z has enjoyed that screen. I think, though, as we change jobs and as we enter new jobs, so whether you're just entering the workforce or regardless of what age you are and you are changing jobs or going into a new role, I really think that we need to be in the office, because I think we specifically, if you are entering the workforce, this is where you learn so much without even realizing you're learning. So, you're hearing a conversation at the water cooler. You're invited to a meeting and you might even not even be participating, but you're sitting at the table and you overhear the banter, and both from an etiquette perspective and a respect perspective, but you hear the sharing of ideas. and how problems are solved or discussed, and even minor anecdotal things about the business that you might not even know. So as much as, I love being online as much as anybody else. I mean, look, we're doing this literally virtually, but I think it's going to be a struggle for Gen Z who have literally, greatest tool ever, worst tool ever, greatest strength, greatest weakness is that, here we are all the time. And I'm constantly saying to people, by the way, this used to be called a cell phone. So, you can actually dial on it and have a conversation. And so I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, is trying to instill in everyone that we can have conversations. I'm going to give you this crazy story. There was a problem actually. I have an income property, so I don't live there anymore. But there was this big kerfuffle because it's not too far from a retail area. And in the retail area, they just installed floodlights. My hunch is that they installed these floodlights because of safety and theft and vandalism. And so there was this big hullabaloo that was going on in between everyone. And they were saying, should we call the police? Should we call bylaw? Should we call the town? What do we need to do in order to figure out how we're going to solve this issue? And so I listened to everybody, and I just sent an email, and I happen to know it's an auto repair. I happened to have gone in there and had my car fixed. And I said, has anybody thought about going over and just having a conversation and seeing if they're open to modifying their light bulbs? And I debated saying it because I was nervous that somebody was going to be like, you're an idiot. Like, that's not how we're going to deal with this. Well, sure enough, the gentleman who started the whole process went over and had a conversation yesterday with the owner of the dealership, and the light bulbs were changed that afternoon. He had no idea, the impact. So I think that's what we have to teach this generation that is coming in, is shared, like simple conversations can save the day and solve the problem without it having to escalate, without it being lost in translation over text, because I think so much is lost in translation. So I think that, those are, in my opinion, going to be, and I see them, some of our biggest challenges. And I think we're going to have to spend the time to share those conversations. I think it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be easy because, I don't want to explain this to a Gen Zer over a text. I think I'm going to, we're going to have to walk up to them in a cubicle, and there's going to be pushback. But I think over time, they're going to see the win in this as they get promoted and as the work becomes easier, because that actually makes, now there's no lawyer involved. There's no bylaw officers. There's no police. Like, we clear through so much red tape when we just have the conversation.
Right. That's right. And, obviously delivered in the best way possible. Like you're saying, context over phone is almost always lost by email as well. Right. Yeah. So it's nice to pick up the phone or go in person for sure. And as far as your identity of, you're an academic, you're a coach and a strategist, how do you balance those roles in your own blueprint? And what have you had to maybe unlearn about leadership, if anything?
That is a great question. So I wrote the Life Blueprint process because I was a hot mess. I admit it. I was running an agency. I was a single mom. I had 70 people in my head office and 5,000 brand ambassadors across the country. And I don't think I was leading as well as I could at home or at work. So I think what I learned is that you really have to take the time to create a plan for yourself that has both that vision of what you want for your life, and at the same time, when you think about your legacy and the impact that you want to have on people, it really grounds you in the moment so that you're not a biatch as you're racing for the vision, and I just don't think, I think if we balance the two, it helps you be your best self. I would say the thing that I have had to unlearn the most is hustle. I think we grow up in a hustle culture, and it's like you do this and hustle. In my generation, it was like you do this, you go to school, you get married, you get a house, you have the kids, blah, blah, blah. And with that, there is an intended pace, and then all the hustle of making money and working, etc. And I think that for my own children, the words of wisdom that I give them is to take the pause and to obviously think about what you really want. And how does that play out day to day so that you live a fulfilling life? And fulfillment is different for all of us. Success is different for all of us. So it's not here for us to sit in judgment of anyone, but it's really, what do you really want and what matters to you? And you plan that out and you silence all the voices. We all have voices all around us, and it's like hustle, hustle, hustle. You got to do this, you got to do that. And it's living up to everybody's expectations. And it's exhausting. So I would say, I will say I do live a very full, very busy life, but there's very little work and very few things that I do anymore that I don't enjoy doing. I always tell my students I hate marking papers, so make your answers easy. But I love teaching them, so I'm not going to give that up for the purpose of the other. And I think that's the other piece that I think as you get older, you reframe the things you don't love doing, and you realize that they're just part of the bigger thing that you do love doing. So you love owning a home, but you hate cleaning it. So you figure out, okay, so what can I do to make this easier for myself so that I can still live in this beautiful space that I love? And I think you start to learn little ways of managing all of that so it doesn't all feel so heavy. And unfortunately, that just comes with age and time. I will also say, everybody kind of laughs when I say this. I meditate, and I can't sit there and do I can't do that. But I have listening meditations where they're talking me through and calming me down and talking me off a ledge. And I will say that's probably been a key factor for managing my life and my stress in the past couple of decades, because sometimes you just got to breathe and take it down a notch.
Now, just sort of touching on a different subject as far as AI goes, obviously it's changing every industry. How do you see it? Yeah, and how do you see it reshaping maybe people management, and then how leaders could maybe prepare to include this widespread element now that's.
Yes, so I will say I love AI. So I teach it, I preach it, I use it. Mm-hmm. But here is what I say is, a hammer doesn't build a house, but a hammer held in the hand of a tradesman or a craftsman is a tool that can be used to build the house. Right. And I use that actually analogy with my students yesterday. And I had, I think that, I've had several conversations in the past week about AI. I think it is great to brainstorm with. I think it's a great partner in crime when you're trying to figure out something, when you want a quick answer, when you want a different perspective. But to be clear, you kind of get the answer that you prod it to give you. So if I said to it, I think apples are healthy. Do you think apples are healthy? It's going to come back with apples are healthy. If I say to it, I don't think apples are really that good for me, it's going to come back with, you're right, apples may not be good for you. So I think to a certain extent, what we get from it, what we give it. And so it's interesting. We did a big presentation yesterday or a week ago rather, to a client. And the client took the presentation and literally took it and uploaded it to ChatGPT and gave us the feedback. And I read the feedback, and of course I had to laugh because I know exactly that it came from ChatGPT, and it missed the conversation, the context, the worldly experience, and the perspective that was needed in order to provide the feedback. So I very gently but assertively shared that with the client. So when you think about this and you're now applying it to humans and how we run our businesses, I think from a logical, statistical basis, it's a great tool. Take my data, build me out a chart, show me, do a competitive analysis, do pricing analysis, show me regression analysis, help me create a volume predictor model. I think for all of those factual, logical pieces, phenomenal. For managing humanity, we're asking a piece of technology to tell us how to optimize an individual. I don't really think that's great. have I used it to help facilitate a process that helps me optimize performance? Yes. So, we created 2 weeks ago, I had a client who was really struggling with their workforce. And so we put in a sort of like a work with me incentive program that is a work as they grow. They've gone from 1 location to 3 locations in less than a year. And so the impact on the organization has been pretty significant. They've gone from 2 employees to 15 employees. And to be clear, the owners of this company are 22. They're phenomenal, but they're on a learning curve. And so now how do they manage and motivate? Because they want to say to the person who's not showing up properly every day, they want to kind of scold them because that's their immediate response because they're on to other things. And so we've taken a step back and we've created an agreement. And so I created the agreement initially, ran it through ChatGPT, asked it to give me some other best practices. It fed back a bunch of things. And then, you kind of wordsmith it and you make it your own and you make it in the context and tone of the organization. So that's where I think it's a great back and forth tool. But if I said to it, go optimize Rebecca's performance, I don't think it's going to do that for me. That's my job. And I think, your performance is going to be different than what I would ask it to do, like what another colleague. So as I said, I think it's a good tool. And I think we can leverage it as a tool. I think we're going to have to watch as it evolves. I mean, who knows where it's going? It's changing in leaps and bounds, literally by the day. So I think it's a great starting point. I don't think it's the end point. I think we have to add our own personal touch to everything.
And then so beyond metrics, what kind of legacy should leaders aim to leave and how people feel and grow under that?
So I think that that's not a one size fits all answer. I think we all have a different context that we work in. And I think we all have different measurements of fulfillment and success. I think as a leader, you have to sit down and think about, how do you want your team to feed back your performance review at the end of the year? We used to do, performance reviews. We've all done them. We've all been there, done that. And I've always had my team, everyone on the team does my performance review for their performance review. It's a circle of a few people. And I remember reading through them and somebody said, you don't talk to me enough. And I knew exactly who it was. And I remember it really hit me hard because I was like, you know what, you're absolutely right. And it was a person that I thought was so self-inspired and motivated that she actually didn't need me. And so I think as a leader, I want people, you have to think about how do you want them to reflect when they're talking to their family about you? Like, we impact how people show up at work. So as a result of that, it really did change how I said hi to her every morning. And I was like, hey, how are you? And I made that extra stop. And it wasn't a hi, how are you? And I was walking by. I literally checked in and said like, hey, her name was Rosie. Hey, Rosie, how you doing today? And what's going on do you need my help on anything? And that the next year I got a clean performance review from her. So I think you have to think about, how are they going to evaluate your performance at the end of the year on metrics that are important to you and also to them. And are you living up to that? So I think, thinking about that impact and legacy, my best way, I do have people do this in workshops and I'll literally give them 20 minutes and I'll say to them, I want you to write the performance review that this person, and it could be an adversary, it could be a peer that is, a competitor. It could be a peer that's supportive. It could be your boss. It could be, somebody that is a supplier. How do you want them to evaluate your performance at the end of the year? And are you then living up to that? And I think we need to do that on a personal level as well. We can say we want to be good moms, daughters, parents. And so then when you look at your day-to-day, you're saying that, but are you living it? If you want to be a good mom, are you doing the things that you think a good mom needs to do that's important to you? Like, are you showing up in that way? You want to be a good daughter? Are you showing up in that way? So I think for leaders, there's not a one size fits all. You've got to figure out what does good leadership mean to you? And I think we have a baseline. I do think there's some baselines out there because not everybody is born to be a leader, and not everybody is a good leader. You might be amazing at running and managing a business, but you might not be great at managing people. So I think you have to have that awareness too. And if you're not, you bring in somebody who is good at managing people. You're like, you're going to manage the people and I'm going to manage this part of the business because that's not my strength. And together, now the whole place flourishes. And so I've seen situations where that has happened as well. And it's a big game changer because now even the leader's more motivated. So I think you have to have the awareness of what you're good at and what you're not good at, and decide what you stand for and live up to it every single day.
Perfect. That's a great way to end it.
Perfect.
I can
Excellent.
go off and do that myself. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Sarah can cut this bit out. I was going to say,
No
thank
problem.
you so much. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us today. It was a great pleasure in speaking with you.
Honestly, it's great to be here and I really look forward to the conference. So hopefully everybody will come and attend and they'll be inspired, motivated, or at least have some food for thought. Hopefully we planted some seeds today. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for this opportunity and for your time.
Excellent. Thank you.